Eamon Gilmore, second question.
I want to welcome the agreement which was reached at the weekend by the finance ministers of the European Union governments to establish a €750 billion stabilisation fund for the euro and for the European economies. I think it's important that European Union governments are prepared to act collectively to face down the kind of financial speculation against the euro and against individual economies and countries, which I think has been causing great worry across Europe, people about their jobs and their savings and their future prospects. And I sincerely hope that that initiative and that agreement works. There are, however, a number of questions that I want to ask the Taoiseach about it. The first relates to its implications and consequences for our own national budgeting. Now, Taoiseach, you are reported as having said that there will not be an early budget this year, that it is the government's intention to have the budget as expected in December. And I'd like to ask you, first of all, if you would confirm that that is the position, if you confirm to the House that that is the position, that there will not be an early budget. Secondly, I'd like you to comment on the belief that there is that the decision at the weekend will result in a greater level of oversight, supervision and EU involvement in our own national budgeting. Is it the case that the decision that was made at the weekend will require the government to seek approval, at least in general terms, in advance from the European Commission before introducing the next budget? I also want to ask you about the other side of the package, if you like. The establishment of the fund, I think, is very, very positive development, and as I said, it's something that I welcome. But there is also the issue of the regulation of financial markets and financial activity in Europe, about which the agreement and the statement that was issued by the ministers afterwards appear to be much more aspirational than the agreement in relation to the fund. What action, for example, is to be taken against financial speculators, and what action is to be taken to reform the markets for government debt? There is reference in the statement to the possibility of regulation of rating agencies. What action is envisaged on that? Where do we stand in relation to the regulation of hedge funds, something that the Labour Party and its sister parties in Europe have been seeking for some time? And in that context, I want to draw your attention to reports that were published in March, which suggested that the resistance to the regulation of hedge funds was coming in Europe, was coming in the main from London and from Dublin. So I'd like to know where does the Irish government stand in relation to the regulation of hedge funds, and where do we stand as a government in relation to the proposal to have a Robin Hood tax on financial transactions? I think it would be important. I mean, as I said, I agree that the establishment of the fund is a very positive development and one that is welcome. But I think we need to, what I would like to know is where does the Irish government stand now in relation to the strengthening of regulation of the financial markets in Europe? Yeah. I thank the Taoiseach for his reply describing how the issues are going to be progressed at European level and the expected work of the task force. And just to say that I think not only is it important that there is agreement at a European level in relation to the need to stabilise the currency, but I think it's also important that there's agreement at a national level as well on the measures that are required to do that. And it is with a view to establishing where the Irish government stands, your government stands, Taoiseach, in respect of the issues that have now to be addressed, that I'm pursuing these questions. With respect, I think that your responses about where the government stands on the future of the regulatory regime in Europe, I think, are a bit on the vague side. I mean, there are issues that have to be addressed here. There's the issue of the regulation of hedge funds. Clearly, what we have seen over the recent past, the speculation both against individual countries and the speculation against the euro, I think, give rise to a requirement for much greater regulation. And I think that, while I interpret what you're saying as a somewhat belated move in government thinking from the era of light touch regulation, and what you described as the mistaken view of the past. I presume you mean by that the kind of policies that were advocated by Minister McCreevy and Commissioner McCreevy and expounded by him, and what you described as the generalist position of the government. But I think there is a need for the government to be clear and to tell us where exactly we are on the regulation of hedge funds, the so-called Robin Hood tax, and the other issues which will now be considered at European Union level, which are the next phase of this process. You also didn't answer the earlier part of my question, which is the implications and consequences of the weekend's agreement for our own national budgeting. Again, and I ask you again, can you confirm that there will not be an early budget? Is it the case that there will be a requirement for greater European supervision as a result of this agreement of our budgetary process? And indeed, where now do we stand in respect, or what is your take on what is Europe's interpretation now of our deficit and our likely deficit, given, for example, the Eurostat decision about the 4 billion that went into Anglo, that has to be factored into the national accounts?